Hi, good afternoon. I have a question for you. How many farms do you think exist in the US at this moment? By the USDA, on 1935, there was 6.8 million. That was the last time it was recorded, right? So they recorded it again in 2017. It has decreased to 2.05 million. That's a big dip on how many farms we have lost. But those farms that stayed running, they grew in acres. Now, the average farm stated by the USDA is about 444 acres in 2017 versus 155 acres in 1935. That was just a fact that I wanted to bring. Now, now that we're talking about farms, let's talk about something that is tied up to this place, agriculture. Now, a question that might or might not pique your interest or provoke your interest on that matter. Why should we learn agriculture? Now, there's 4 points that I have that might sound peculiar. Now, the problem I have is that the youth of this era or generation have poor knowledge of agriculture. So for that problem, we need a solution, right? So the solution that I'm proposing or I'm trying to let you know is we should teach and apply that basic knowledge of agriculture to the school environment. Now, the step to accomplish that or to accomplish this will be or should be to have the youth to interact more with nature and give them the pros and cons of situations where this knowledge becomes useful or is a common sense. Now, the benefit after taking that step or that action could be that the youth have more interaction with nature, taking extracurricular activities to agriculture or any outdoor activities. Now, let's talk about the poor knowledge. Okay, as Wilkinson said, as we get farther and farther away from the farm, a lot of our youth or young people think food comes from the grocery store. We thought it would be good for all our students to at least have an idea of where their food comes from and what it takes to produce it. A lot of times we take our food for granted. It's really easy to do. Now, when we talk about that is, yeah, a lot of kids or a lot of youth, okay, I open the fridge, there's food. I open the pantry, there's food. But they don't know the hard work that comes to produce and get that food into those fridges and those pantries, right? So, stated by Iowa AG Literacy, statistics says that most people today are 3 or 4 generations removed from the farm and they don't know where the food they eat comes from and really don't know the importance of knowing anything about agriculture. So I've noticed that. And let's be honest, we know that okay, we get food from the grocery store. But do you know all the trouble or all the things that go through that from where it grew all the way to the grocery store? That's one of the knowledges that you don't know. Okay, so to that problem, let's go and to the teaching part to teach the basic knowledge, you know. And stated by Wilkinson, kids are more excited about coming to school when they can actively participate in the lesson. Teach them something that they can do at home. And when they come to school, they say, okay, I learned something in school that I did at home, so I know something. And they will try to interact in school more actively. Now, another thing is in our youth, we have to teach them or we have to let them pass this knowledge. There are jobs in food science, technology, engineering, communication, business, art, accounting, and a lot more. And all of that can be, and it is connected to agriculture. An example, let's say engineering. You have to engineer a machine, let's say a John Deere, one of the most uh, knowledgeable or famous business that we use to not use, but we buy tractors from them, which we use to plow, to reseed, to harvest crops, to harvest uh, the farm. Okay, so now after we talk about teaching, after we talk about the knowledge, okay, have the youth to interact more with nature and give them the pros and cons of situations where this knowledge become useful or common sense. So let's make an example. Let's make a connection. Food. Believe that developing healthy relationships with food should begin with learning about where and how food is grown in farms. So that's a big step. Let's say teach them different fruits. And at the end of the lesson or at the end of the week, make them a salad with those fruits. They know the let's say they love the fruit salad. And when they see that you cut the fruits and you make that salad, they know they uh connect the fruit with the food. So that's a connection that we see. Now, another one is make the connection with the land. Let them teach them how to touch, experiment with plants, uh, identify different plants, search for bugs. You know. Now, after all of that, we go for the youth having the interaction with nature and taking extracurricular activities to agriculture or any outdoor activities, but only if they get interested. Now, if they don't get interested, they have the knowledge, but they don't. If they don't want to follow that route, they don't have to. You know. So, said by Walter Jacobi, youth tend to develop interest in those areas encouraged in high school, and that the lack of agricultural education has become youth who should be in agriculture to enter other occupations. Now, that's if the school environment does not provide agricultural teaching, those students that are interested will go toward other career paths. And another thing said by Jacobi, I can see the great value derived from offering non-vocational courses as elective for those students who have an interest in agriculture. So if the school does not want to have an agricultural environment, at least have the basics of ag science towards those students that like or are interested in those topics, right? So, on conclusion, based on those four major points, we can state that even if it is basic knowledge, it should be imparted to the youth. This action might motivate them into going toward the field of work or study of agriculture. Another thing is learning agriculture might be fun and more interactive when they're young. Learning topics uh, about this. Now, in agriculture, let's put it this way. Put it roughly, is more hands-on the task. Work with dirt. Get your hands dirty. It's not being behind a desk. Now that we know all of this, here comes the question. What do you think? Should you learn agriculture, or even if it is the basics knowledge of it, Should you do it or not? That's the question.